Well, what's next for manager Ivan Juric? Will he still be at the club next season?
Well, Julia, that's the key question, and I think Juric and the club will hold talks at some point in the coming weeks to ultimately decide on that. So no decision has yet been taken. Remember, Juric is a manager that Southampton have tracked before they finally got him when Russell Martin left the club and they've brought him in. He himself was asked about that yesterday, and he talked more about the lessons that need to be learned from the relegation, hinting maybe the recruitment wasn't quite right, hinting that maybe they didn't have enough experience in this Premier League season after coming up from the Championship, and Juric clearly focusing very much on that before holding those talks with the club to decide what happens next season in the Championship.
They really deserve much more. Every person that works in Southampton has to do it better and create something much more stronger than we create this year. Now it's a very important moment to understand all the mistakes, what the club did in the last 3 or 4 years, and start to create something really good.
Right, we are going to be back to Paul for more later in the morning, but now we can speak to former Southampton striker Kevin Davies. Good morning, Kevin. Good to see you. It's been a miserable season, hasn't it, for Southampton? What have you made of it?
Yeah, there's not been much to really sing about for the fans. It's been a disaster, really, for them. I watched them early on in the season under Russell Martin and just felt they were a little bit soft, too easy to play against. I mean, you just put high press on them, win the ball, and I think obviously they conceded a lot of goals this season. What was it, 74 goals? So can understand the decision when Russell Martin was sacked, really. And Juric has come in and not really made much difference, really. I was hoping he would just come in and make them harder to beat, get some 0-0s, grind out 1-0 here and there. It just hasn't happened. So it's either the players aren't good enough or the managers just haven't been able to get a tune out of them.
Yeah, Kevin, they spent over £100 million in the summer, but was the recruitment good enough, do you think?
Well, clearly not. I think 10 points is, for me, it's borderline embarrassing, really, as players. I've had a relegation myself with Bolton. We took it to the last day at Stoke and just missed out, and it was awful, really. So you'd have to look at the recruitment. I think that's a big part to play. So is that just down to the recruitment team, or is that basically Russell Martin saying, I want these type of players to, continue what the good form that they had from the Championship, and look at some of the players there. Not much Premier League experience, they'd have to say, Ramsdale maybe, but other than that, not much at all. So, listen to Russell Martin. I think he was on Monday Night Football a while ago saying I think he was surprised by the physicality and the experience and things. I just don't think they had enough experience for the Premier League, really. And I think that's really cost them 10 points towards that, really.
You touched on this just a moment ago, but the decision to sack Russell Martin, that was back in December. They replaced him with Ivan Juric. You touched on the fact that you think that was a mistake. You think that they should have given Martin longer, perhaps?
I'm not too sure. I think having watched it a couple of times early on, it was quite uncomfortable to watch at times. They were getting rolled over 2-3, 4-0. The crowd was starting to turn, and the players were just being asked to do the same job that they were doing in the Championship. But in the Premier League, it's ruthless. You make one mistake, you get punished at this level. And I think he kind of wanted them to change things or change formation or do something a bit different, go a little bit more direct, but they continued in that style of play. So for me, I think it was the correct decision. And whether Juric has been the right one or not, that's another question. So lots of questions, I think, from Southampton fans, really, about the recruitment team, the management, have the senior people at the club got these decisions right? And I think for me now, going forward, does the manager stay or go? Have they seen enough of him in and around the training ground to prove that he's the one, next year, then to go and give another pot of money, potentially from a sale of Tyler Dibling, to go and rebuild again? That is a crucial decision for them over the next few weeks, I think.
Yeah, just to follow on from that, he was given an 18-month contract when he was appointed. Do you think he'll be in charge next season?
I'd be surprised, I think. He's been there since December. They've won one game. They picked up 5 points in his tenure there. So for me, it's not been good enough. I haven't seen enough to suggest that he's the right man for the job. If he thinks the Premier League's tough, the Championship's going to be even harder. We know how brutal the Championship is. Do they go and get someone who's tried and tested, knows the levels a bit more, and they can really start to rebuild it? It's a tricky time for them. We've seen them in recent times in League One, so it's important that they don't go again. So I think they've got a core of a few decent players there, but I think it needs pretty much a rebuild there. And I think getting the right people, the right director of football, the head of recruitment, all those departments, it needs a big review for me, really.
Yeah, you talk about a rebuild. In the post-match news conference, Juric said that everyone at the club must do much better. If we look at Southampton's record in the Premier League under the current owners, it's not good at all. How much responsibility lies with them?
Well, they have to be accountable for where they are, really. They're making the big calls. For me, the manager's always going to be the most important person at the club because he drives everything, the recruitment, spending the money, bringing the players in, putting all the values in there, the culture, and it starts with him, really, so they have to get that right. So, Russell Martin did a great job in taking them back up, didn't really want to change or change things in the way of his style of play, so they suffered there. But this is the next big one for them. Does Juric stay or go? Get that decision right. I think they probably need a change. Bring someone in who knows the levels, a bit more experience there, and start to really rebuild again for hopefully getting back to the Premier League in a few months' time.
Well, Kevin, with 7 games left and 2 points needed for Southampton to ensure they aren't the worst team in Premier League history, can they do it?
On current form, it's going to be difficult. Even Palace last week, wasn't it? They were a couple of minutes away from getting there and let a late goal in. That's been the story of their season, really. The only way I can see it, they've got likes of Villa coming up. Do they rest a few players with the Champions League? The likes of Fulham in the Cup and things like that. So it's going to be hard. You probably look towards that Leicester game, don't you, and think that's the one that they can maybe go and get the win. But on current form, it's going to be difficult for them. And like I say, as players, you've got to play with a bit more pride, and nobody wants that sort of tag of being the worst Premier League team in history. So it's a big few weeks for them. I think, from what I've seen of them, they've been given their all. I don't think they've down tools or anything like that. I said that a few times this season. They are giving their all. It's just not been good enough.